Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And they are approved. At this time, I'd like to hopefully get the names of everybody who is here visiting. If you could just state who you are. We'll go ahead and start with the back corner, if that's okay.
Kelly Green, Principal, Redwood Middle School.
Julia Felges, parent from Foothill Elementary. Betsy Chong, also a parent from Foothill Elementary School.
Ken Chen, parent from Redwood.
Adrian Chen, student at Redwood.
Harry Dill, Redwood and District Technology.
Yes.
Stephen Law, I'm the new Executive Director at LGS Recreation.
And Cole Redwood, an SCA representative.
I'm Alex Chapman, the principal at Argonaut.
Roxanne Inman, a parent at Foothill.
Rami Naimi, parent at Redwood and Sentinel.
Raj, Argonaut, the parent, Argonaut and Settled High.
Daryl Miller, Redwood parent.
I'm Steve Stover, and I'm a parent of students, 3 students at Argonaut Elementary.
William C., a parent from Redwood and 2 from Argonaut.
Sandy Ray Lopez, 4th grade Foothill, and representing us here tonight. Julie Hills, Principal, Saratoga Elementary.
Janice Young, Director of Special Education.
Gordon Farley, Director of Educational Services.
Rishi Kumar.
Come on in, there's seats in the front. If you could just, when you have a seat, if you could introduce yourselves, that'd be great. Could you please just state your name? We'd love to know who you are.
Sabresh Jagannath.
Ryan Chatterjee.
Thank you. Welcome, and thank you, everybody, for being here. Is there somebody else? One more person in the back.
Hey, I'm Cheyenne Mohammed.
Again, thanks for being here. Before we continue,
Yes, thank you so much. We had a request from a community member to video record this meeting, so by law, I'm obligated and by board policy to let our audience know that this meeting is being video recorded. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'd like to take any comments from the community. And these are comments and announcements appropriate to educational programs and activities that are not already on the agenda. So if you have any comments of that nature, we just ask that you limit them to 3 minutes. Do we have any comments? No?
Yeah, this is, I don't believe on the agenda, and that is the math requirements. There's a lot of discussion about proposals and so forth, but I'd like to again bring up the fact that we need to be talking about what we're trying to do, what are our requirements or criteria by which we're going to judge the various solutions that are being floated. I spoke about this on October 8th, and if we could pass that around. And I subsequently learned that some key people did not get this document. I thought everyone had received it, but that was incorrect. So I'm hoping this can be included in the minutes for tonight's meeting, just so it's a permanent part of the record. And I have some additional ones to hand out if anyone wants one. So this just tries to frame, what are our goals when we're judging these various proposals.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Daryl. I'll check with Amy and our policy on including attachments that are presented from the public to our meetings. I don't know what the policy is, but we'll look into that. Any other comments from the community? Okay. Are there comments from our employees? Comments from the superintendent?
Great, thank you so much. First comment, we do a double introduction, with a little more length to it. Stephen Ma's here. I'm very pleased and proud to present him to our board and our community. He's the Executive Director of the Los Gatos Saratoga Recreation Department. Comes from a long history of working with school districts and JPAs, both in Northern California and Southern California. Most recently in Monterey, at the community college level. He came right in a month or so ago and has really actively visited school sites, dug into the issues that we have. He's been very responsive to requests for information, made a point to dig into some of the things we're working on with West Valley College, collaborated with the Saratoga City Recreation Department, and has really been a joy to work with and has really energized the staff. So part of his work, I serve on that board, so part of his work with our board is that he's coming to school board meetings so that people can know who he is. He can become sensitive to the needs of our students and our community and staff here, and I'm very pleased he was able to join us. He's been to the Los Gatos Union School Board meeting. He's coming to us, and then he'll be visiting the high school district board in the near future. So it's a pleasure to have you here, and thank you for being here. Do you want to say a word or two? Or?
Sure. Well, I'm very excited to be here in the community. You know, when I was at the Los Gatos meeting a month ago, I said I was on the job for only 4 weeks, so I can't answer any questions. So I'm on the job for 8 weeks, and I can answer a few questions. I've done a little bit better. But one of the things I do want to thank is to thank Superintendent Lane Weiss for his leadership at LGS Recreation for the past year. It's been going through a period of transition, and Lane's really provided great leadership during that period. And he's turned over the reins to me, so thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you. Some sad news that I'd like to share with you in our audience this evening. There's been a recent passing of former employees in our school district. Dr. Phil Ward, who was principal at Argonaut School and at Redwood Middle School, passed away last month. I actually went to high school with one of Phil's sons, and I was able to speak with him at the Argonaut's 50th celebration, and he had a lot of pride about this school district and was a huge contributor to the work that goes on in our district, and was a big part of our history in our school district, so we're very sad to hear about that. Second, Bonnie Calder, who was a teacher at Foothill Elementary School in first grade, and was also the lead negotiator when I first came to the school district. We kind of bonded through that process. And I also was able to visit her classroom and got to know her a little bit before her retirement. So our thoughts go out to their families for their loss, and our Saratoga family certainly holds their spirit true in our classrooms in our school district. They're huge contributors to education in our community. Last comment, I want to wish everyone a great holiday season. I really want to encourage people. We've got Foothill Musical coming this weekend that we're excited about, and a lot of concerts next week. You can stay out every night and go hear some of the greatest music in the world. So would really encourage everybody to support our music programs and the amazing performances of our students and the hard work of our teachers and staff. So hope to see you at one of the concerts. Thank you.
Do we have any comments from board members?
I have a comment. I was approached by the chair and the chair advisor of the Common Ground Speaker Series. I don't know if you all have heard of this. Mm-hmm. It's a parent education consortium in the Bay Area that actually organizes world-class speakers that include authors, doctors, scientists. Most of them have TED Talks, like Dr. Jane McGonigal and Sir Ken Robinson. They are interested in creating a parallel parent ed consortium that leverages the same sort of scale and economies that the original one does. And we're interested in knowing if our community might be interested in something like that. And I, of course, am very interested because I've gone to several of these conversations and they're really powerful. So I just wanted to throw that out there, see if any community members might like to step up and organize that.
So I have a comment to make. So this is my first year, actually 1 year anniversary on the board. The first 6 months was really quiet. And then the second 6 months, we got a lot of parent interaction with us. And not only for early Wednesday issues, but also recently, especially this week, we have been getting a lot of emails from the parents from the community regarding Common Core Math. I absolutely welcome that because I really don't like the lonely first 6 months. I think the second 6 months, although we have our challenges, but I do appreciate the interaction we have with the community. I think the more we work together, the more communication we have, the better we can make our schools to fit our needs.
Yes, as I warned everyone, the School Boards Association had a meeting with Jim Milgram, who is a counter voice to the Common Core. Very, very interesting. I provided a copy of his handouts that I think we shared with everyone. Interesting person, some interesting thoughts, well worth looking into that, understanding what he's saying versus what other people are saying. I think it helps balance out the message. Another thing, we also had John Ye talk about gifts and the legal requirements there, so I picked up an extra 4 of his short summaries of the requirements for my fellow board members here.
Thank you.
Santa came early.
And I wanted to make a comment. I had the opportunity to attend the first Superintendent's Advisory Council meeting since our last board meeting. And just to reiterate what an amazing community we have, because I got to meet with all the presidents of the different booster groups and PTAs that serve this district, and we are just very fortunate to have such energetic people who want to help our students and help our district. So it was a great meeting. So I appreciate Lane getting them all together, and I'm happy that I get to be the board representative there. It was fun. Good. Okay, so we will go on to our first action and discussion item, which is the Common Core State Standards, Math K through 8. And like Victor said, we do appreciate the emails and the comments we have gotten from so many parents. And if I am not mistaken, a lot of you want to take the time to speak to us tonight. I don't know if that's true or not. We want to give you the opportunity to do that if you came to do that. So I believe there is a sheet of paper. Amy, I don't know where they are.
They're in the back corner.
If you could fill it out with your name, we just want to make sure we record that accurately and pass it forward. If you'd like to speak, I will call out whoever turns out a sheet of paper and give you a chance to speak. And what we'd like to do at this point is hear all the comments you have to say, then let Lane give the report, and then have the board have a discussion. And as many of you know, we are not allowed to discuss this as a board outside this room. All our discussions have to be in public. So after we've heard the comments and the reports, I think it is very important that we spend some time talking as a board about this subject, because it is important, so that we can get more information and get our questions answered, and hopefully get some clarity around the subject. And at that point, I would really appreciate it if the audience could respect our time and let us have that discussion. So if you would like to speak, and if you want to fill out a sheet of paper, pass it forward. I'm happy to call your name. You'll have 3 minutes.
Is it this file?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And we'll give you guys a few minutes to do that. I guess I should ask for a show of hands. Does anybody, would anybody like to speak? Okay. Just a couple? Mike, I'm sorry, you were gonna say something?
I was gonna say, while we're waiting, if I could just make one comment. I appreciate all of the emails we got. And I'm not sure who originally wrote the first version of that, but thank you. I have to say that I'm really in 100% agreement. I think the principles that were presented in those emails, I think, are quite valid, and things that we should be careful to make sure we do right.
can also make the same comment as Mike. So I agree 100% with those emails from the parents. And the challenge for us is that how do we ensure to meet those requests?
Okay. Any other comments before I call on community members? Rishi?
Yes. So I wanted to start by touching upon what Victor referenced, the roller coaster ride. 6 months of silence, and then here we are, right? So sometimes they can be fun, actually, going through the roller coaster ride. But really, it's all about getting a community to recognize a cause and providing our input, because I think that will help craft a good thought-out decision, correct? And that's really what we are trying to do. And good show of parents here tonight. And so I think some of the points that we have been trying, some of us have been talking, communicating, trying to figure this out, right? It's a complex issue. I'm pretty sure it's complex for all of you as well. And when we look at the issue, we have to actually break it down to very simple terms, right? So essentially, when you look at our school district, it's a very high-performing school district. And the lens through which we view the school district and make decisions and choices has to be made from that lens, right? We have to acknowledge that rule number one, that we are a high-performing school district, and then base all the decisions based upon that. Now, some of these changes that are coming to force, they are, it's something that's been applied across the board nationally in California. There are changes happening, right? But we have to sort of exercise some caution, because what may apply at a national level may not exactly apply to a Silicon Valley community. I think this is very, very critical. And then secondly, when we craft out a strategy, a viewpoint that the board will actually come up with at some point, right, based upon discussions and all that, we have to kind of make sure that we take into account other school districts. Like, for example, you have to look at Palo Alto and Silicon Valley school districts. Let's not get out, looking at like Missouri or anywhere else. Right? I think we have to craft out a viewpoint, a strategy for our very specific school district in comparison to all these other high-performing districts as well. So I think that would be a well thought out decision. Let's go forward with that. Right? That would be a good way to conduct this. Pragmatic, well thought out decision. That would be kind of nice to see.
Thank you. Sarvesh?
So, with reference to this, in terms of the ideas, they're pretty similar to what Rishi is saying, but I just want to bring it to, 3 hypotheses that I think, if those are true, then the answers for how we move forward for Common Core will fall out of it, in my opinion. The first hypothesis I have is for college readiness across aspirationally selective colleges versus not that selective colleges and so forth, the requirement for math seems to be to load up a lot in high school. So, to have AP calculus and even beyond at times. To achieve that, there is some requirement for accelerating in Redwood Middle. So that's one hypothesis, so that we can our kids can get to all kinds of colleges that they want to apply to. So that's the first hypothesis. Second hypothesis is we are a higher performing school as a school district, as Rishi was alluding to. The data will suggest that as well, from scores and purely from data of API scores, March testing, and all those things. We would rate as a high performing school. And in the school district, we already had accelerated paths to, for all students to take Algebra 1 by middle school, and for some students, even geometry was available in middle school. So that means there was already an accelerated path available for students, and with that, we were a high-performing school district. So given that, we want to maintain at least that level or more to continue to have the same kinds of results Saratoga students saw through colleges. The third hypothesis is, if you are a high-performing school, and common standards are really what they are, common, we would have obviously, the common standards will be averaging lower than our current standards in our current school district. So going to common standards should be a goal. I'm not taking away from that goal, but if that's the goal, it certainly will take away from, it will go lower in terms of average, course load and so forth. So I think if Common Core is a goal, then we have to keep acceleration, either an accelerated path for certain students, or make getting to algebra like we are currently doing a requirement in the school district like we already have. So based on those hypotheses, I think just adopting pure Common Core for Saratoga School District will not be a reasonable outcome. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Thank you. For the people who just walked in, if you'd like to speak, I know there's some sheets in the back, just send them on forward and I'll call your name.
Right there.
Antonella?
Sure.
Hi, thank you. So I just have a quick comment that is a little bit different from what has been said so far. So going back to the discussion of the last 6 months and the acceleration in the communication in the last week, I just wanted to point out, as in the agenda tonight, there is a discussion on the timeline, that as you can see that the community is finally really getting the message of what is happening. I really caution to take all the measures that you can to make sure that the community, now that starts being really engaged and understanding that there is this discussion going on, has really a chance to chime in at a broader, with a broader, number with respect to what has been so far. Because I think it's unfortunate that in spite of many times that we've been calling out also the fact that the communication was not there, the communication still was not there, and for whatever reason, just didn't reach out to the parents' community until really very, very late in the game. So that's a little bit concerning to me.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Cynthia Miller.
Just two quick thoughts. One is, I think we've put the Redwood teachers, math teachers on the hot seat here, perhaps disproportionately so. This is a K-12 issue, and I'd like us not to lose sight of the fact that Common Core is equally applicable to the K-5 situation. And I believe Kelly Green pointed out some concerns that the teachers have about the kids when they come in to K-6, and perhaps our issue is less an issue of what we need to do about Redwood Middle School curriculum than it may be about what we need to do with the kids in K-5. And we do have a lot of parents who take their kids elsewhere for accelerated programs, Kumon and whatever, so they can be prepared to jump a level when they get to Redwood. And I think we need to, as a district, address why that's happening and what we need to be doing at the K-5 level so that these kids are coming in and the teachers don't feel like they're starting behind things. My second point is just again to ask, we need to see a K-12 map before this is all said and done. If we look at it as a Redwood-only issue, we're losing sight of where we're trying to take our kids from the time they come into the district to when they come out of the district and are headed off to college. It needs to be a unified look at things.
Nina Tang?
Actually, I was just saying she was really well said. A lot of the things I want to say has already been expressed by others. But I just want to stress out that coming from the Chinese background, and then what we do in China is very deep in the direction of math and physics and stuff. So our kids grow up being pretty advanced going into schools. And then so they are already treating the current math curriculum as being kind of boring for them because it's too easy. And then the thought of lowering even that is really unnerving to me. And then so, because we are raising the kids so that they will be competitive in the future, not just for the college entrance, because that's just the beginning of their higher education. It's not even entering them into the society, right? We will raise the kids to be useful to the society and not wanting to have them lack the ability to be competitive worldwide, right? Because we're competing with other countries and other students that are very well educated on these subjects. And then, as we all well know, that U.S. on these fronts is already kind of behind. And then, but being in this really good district, I was having the thought like maybe they will be better off compared to like compared to San Jose School Districts or Fremont, or. But then the thing is like in my mind, the Common Core was kind of developed so that kids that are left behind would not be left behind, so that the teachers would have a minimum base they can base on to raise the slower advancing kids to this level, not meant to be a standard for everybody else to level out. Because kids are different, and then our school district is too good for this to happen. And then I feel like lowering our standard is just going to pull the legs off our kids. And then, and also some parents mentioned that they need to finish pre-calculus and calculus before the college entrance. And then having them starting off at a lower point is not going to help in that standard. And then this is going to lose our ability to compete at the national level. Okay. And then also, like, I saw some statistics some parents sent out, and it looks like a lot of the students, most of the students are already on the fast track as it is right now. And I really don't see the point why we want to lower the current standard, so that most of the kids will be bored in class, and then, you know, when kids get bored, all things can happen, especially like developing bad habits. My kids are very active and very talkative, and it has me really worried that their attention will just get distracted by something else, because whatever's being taught in the classroom is just too boring, and then they will carry this bad habit to other subjects.
Thank you. Thank you. Shauna.
Yeah, I wanted to, there's been a lot of discussion about the acceleration pass and the current acceleration pass, but I do want to bring the topic to focus on what's happening for the bulk of the students who now have Algebra 1 as an offering without going to outside tutoring or schools to be able to have that track at 8th grade. That opens them up for calculus as a senior, which can be important for a lot of college programs or strong colleges. And I think it's really risky to apply that as a mainstream course for our students, because I don't think our testing suggested that our mainstream students are capable of that path. So if we step back on that path, we're going to put our students in a situation where they're not really having an opportunity for calculus without going and supplementing elsewhere. And in this district, I think they should get those paths within our school system and not going outside. And I do think Cynthia makes a good point on looking at this as a K-8 issue. I know there are other states have gone to Common Core ahead of us and have dealt with similar issues in other districts. I know I think someone circulating around even a district, I think it's Montgomery County, Maryland, which has 30% of their students on free lunch programs, not the advantage of our students. And they have found pathways to offer within Common Core Geometry, Algebra 1, and Common Core 8 at that district, that student body. So, and they've done so by looking and adjusting down in K-5 to open up those pathways for 8th grade without trying to shove it all into the middle school curriculum. So, those are my thoughts.
Thank you. William.
So I have a few comments. I'm also from a Chinese background and learned math all the way from elementary school all the way to college. And from my experience compared to U.S. versus China, I feel like in the U.S. math curriculum, it's very slow in the beginning, like from the elementary all the way to middle school. So the kids are, they're learning the same thing, similar stuff over and over. Over years, there's not much. And then starting at middle school, starting to pick up, but compared to Chinese math, it's still behind. And then and when we go to high school, all of a sudden the step is like the jump, it's really hard, like including the algebra 2, like trigonometry, even calculus. We didn't learn calculus in high school in China. So in the US, starting low and slow, pretty behind, and all of a sudden it's past the Chinese math curriculum. So the acceleration in high school is very steep. So that makes the kids at high school very stressful. So in my opinion, it's not just, instead of slowing down, we should accelerate the kids earlier, even in elementary school, at least in middle school, to at least have them finish geometry and algebra so that they have enough background for the follow-on curriculums, including AP calculus and also other AP classes like physics or chemistry. They all require a pretty deep algebra background. So postpone the algebra to high school that makes them very difficult to absorb the knowledge in AP, other AP subject classes. Another thing I want to comment is our parents. I saw a lot of parents, they already trying to accelerate their kids in terms of math knowledge by seeking the math classes outside the school by tutoring. That's one thing. And another thing is the geometry in middle school. Only very few students can have a chance to the point that they take geometry in 8th grade. So what a lot of parents do, to my knowledge, is after they finish Algebra 1 in 8th grade, they take the summer school for geometry and try to get so that they can learn Algebra 2 in high school. So that, well, you know the intention of the parents, and the kids are, they can accept that. Their knowledge level is ready for that, I believe. But the summer course of 3 months, or maybe 1 or 2 months, for geometry is not enough. It's just too short. So in my opinion, we should have most of our students learn geometry for a full year in middle school by the end of 8th grade.
What they need. Staff needs to know if we're going through any kind of a change, or even if we're going to maintain where we are, but prepare for the Smarter Balance assessment, what support can they expect from the school district and resources that we can provide in the area of professional development, materials, technology, assessment, possibly staffing. I know in an earlier board meeting we talked about maybe this is hard with the current system we have, but maybe we can change our system to better fit our students' needs and better prepare them. And that's certainly something within the board's purview, and we're happy to help define that with you, the staff and the community, and so on. So I hope you find the information collected useful. We learn more and more each day. I know at the school boards conference, we were able to talk with other school districts, people at the State Department, people who do this as well. I've maintained contact with Dr. Marie Alcock, who is an international consultant and author. She's doing a lot of work in Los Gatos, and she's willing to come and help with strategies. Other districts on the East Coast and New York have been. And she helps you arrive at your own answer locally. It's not like she has an answer and does that. She's quite knowledgeable about this, and I'd like to talk to the board about possibly bringing her in to do some professional development with our leadership, both on the teacher side and administrative side. And I know she'll be here in February, so that might be a nice time to capitalize on her being in Los Gatos and making them pay for her flight and accommodations. And we'll just pay for her, a lunch in Saratoga. But she's quite good at working with parents and staff, and I think using other resources is a good idea to get fresh perspectives. But again, to keep a local focus, someone talked about the lens of looking at here, and I think that's an excellent way to frame this and to have a mindset about our community and the futures that we hope our kids get to have as a result of good work done here. So thank you. I look forward to your discussion, and I'm happy to take any direction you give for me or for me to work with staff on. Thanks.
Thank you, Lane. Since Lane alluded to this, I'm gonna go ahead and talk a little bit about the session that I attended when we were at the school board's conference. And this, the presenter was Tom Adams, who works for the California Department of Education, and he was actually one of the people who worked on the framework to go with the Common Core State Standards for math. And as he explained it, the Common Core State Standards are the what needs to be done, the framework is how it's gonna be done. And he did talk a little bit, he actually presented along the lines as what we heard from our middle school teachers, that we have Common Core 6, Common Core 7, Common Core 8, and then we go on to high school, or you could introduce acceleration between 6th and 7th grade, and maybe in 7th, compact 7th and 8th, and then 8th grade, compact 8th, and Algebra 1, I believe was the, and I looked to Kelly because I believe that was it, Algebra 1. So that students could still have the opportunity to have calculus in senior year. He talked about choices, and as I sat there listening, I thought about everything that our community had been saying, and this was before the emails, but it did strike me that maybe we were more high performing than what they were gearing this for. The audience listening to his presentation was probably not school districts that are like ours. So I waited till afterwards, and I had the opportunity to visit with him for a while and actually talk to him about Saratoga and our students and what our parents expect. And he was actually very informative. He did refer me to Neil Finkelstein, who is a researcher who has done studies on acceleration and placement. And in fact, if you look at the framework, Appendix 1 quotes him extensively, and it talks about acceleration options when implementing the Common Core State Standards. They sort of stop short on acceleration, for what Shauna mentioned, calculus in high school, which I think a lot of our students can do, but we do have a cohort that does calculus as juniors, and I know a lot of parents expect that and want that, so I talked to him about that. And he basically said that Mr. or Dr. Finkelstein talks about the dangers of placement and how not only is it important to accelerate students at the right time, because if they're not challenged, they won't perform well and they will be bored. By the same token, you don't want to accelerate them at the wrong time and put them in the wrong class. So it is important to make sure, and that is a very hard topic, how do you decide where children should go and students should go. But his suggestion was that maybe we needed, if our parents wanted calculus junior year, maybe we should consider acceleration right after 5th grade. That our district might be capable of handling that, and our students are probably capable of handling that. And I thought, okay, and his only caution was use diagnostics that hopefully can place students where they need to be. And he mentioned that the UC systems, UCLA in particular, is working on diagnostics using Common Core State Standards that maybe we might be able to avail ourselves of. I don't know where that is, but he also cautioned that compacting didn't mean skipping material, it just meant going over it quickly. But he felt that maybe our students could have different ways to jump on the bandwagon as it was going quickly, whether it was 5th grade, maybe offer another diagnostic at 6th grade, maybe, you know, and he didn't go into all the possibilities, but I thought that was a smart way to look at it, that we didn't need to be holding students back who needed to be held, or who should be going forward. And it all comes back to choices, what we were talking about, people have mentioned. We have students who should have choices, depending on their ability levels. Some can accelerate and maybe even do more than, you know, maybe calculus sophomore year. But then we have others who may not need to take calculus in high school. But we need to offer programs, hopefully for all of them. I do recognize that that involves staff, and the work that has to be done is huge between now and when we start this. But the other point that he made during his presentation and really struck a chord, and I'm going to go back to what Mrs. Miller said, is he actually showed problems that had to be done by 1st graders and 2nd graders and 3rd graders. And I taught 4th grade when he got to fourth grade, I thought, no fourth grader I ever taught could do these problems. So I am a bit concerned about the K through 5 now, and I don't know that our teachers have the support they need to be ready to teach, because the rigor really jumps. It will now, I think, be more exponential as they go. It's not gonna be this, it's so-so, and then high school you jump up. I think the Common Core state standards are gonna make it rigorous from kindergarten, because they're expecting kindergartners to do things that I don't think they've been doing. So those were the 2 points I came back with. One, I would like to see options being offered at different points along the way so that acceleration can happen, because I think our students are capable. And 2, I think the K through 5, I think our teachers need a lot of support, whether that is more staff, more materials. I don't know what it is, but I just came back with that concern, that we needed to take that discussion to another level, because I know Mrs. Miller has mentioned it, but I don't know that we've addressed it yet.
Patty, I want to take off on your point that you said about the checks and balances along the way and having those. I was talking to a board member from Cupertino, and they have actually adopted a certain similar, what you were talking about, having after 5th grade, you do a little diagnostic. Then after 6th, then after 7th, and based on, for some kids might accelerate after 5th, some might after 6th, etc., but with the Common Core in it. So I asked the question, I said, how are you doing these tests? What tests are you using? Because we don't have anything. So apparently they don't have the details planned out, but they're working, some of their staff is working on this diagnostics. So, maybe that's something we can maybe partner with them or look into in more detail as to what they're doing, because they have it in such a way that they will do geometry in 8th grade. They're offering geometry in 8th grade. So that's something maybe we can, dig deeper into. And as I said, yes, it's great to adopt it, but have you figured out all the details? And I think Lane mentioned that earlier too, at the superintendent level, at the staff level, in other districts, that yes, we have it, but how are we going to do it? It's all those little fine details that we've got to figure out. So great, if we can partner with Cupertino, great, because they are also looking with their high schools, because they have the same thing, with K-8, and then they have Fremont High and Sunnyvale that they have to partner with. So that's something we can. What I heard today, and I agree with, is the K-12 pathway. I mean, if my kid is in 1st grade today, this year, what's my kid going to do in 2nd grade, and then 3rd grade, and etc. So that's definitely something I totally agree with, and choice is very necessary for the accelerated, for the at level, and for below level. We cannot forget that the other 2 subgroups. It's really, really important. And I think you said that too, Patty, that kids can accelerate at a different, they're not ready in 6th grade to skip it. They might be ready only in high school. Maybe in high school they skip 2 levels. Who knows, because that's when they're ready for it. So we've got to see how we can build a flexible system. I think that's what I'm trying to get at, is more of a flexible system, but meeting all the different needs of our kids, so that they're ready for a competitive society and competitive workplace. That's my thoughts.
Actually, I had a question. As Lane was talking about the Redwood and high school math teachers collaborating, I was wondering why K through 5 wasn't represented there, or if there was an opportunity to have a focus group or a work group from K through 12.
The meeting was organized by the teachers. Kelly and I didn't even know that. So I appreciate the initiative. It's a great point. I spent time at Argonaut School. I specifically focused on 5th grade today, and I was able to talk with a couple of teachers. So I agree. I think what we'd like to do is get some teacher leaders from all 3 elementary schools and involve them in forums such as this to talk. I worked in a unified school district, and how this would go is I'd meet with my high school math department, And the UCs and the colleges and universities would beat up on high school. So our high school teachers like to beat up on the middle school teachers, talk about what they weren't doing. And so we would meet and they said, well, you know, it's not happening here at our K-5 level. So we'd go and meet with them and they said, well, these parents aren't getting these kids prepared. And I said, how far are we going to point? You know, at some point we need to stop pointing. What we need to do is hold hands.
Yes, we do.
And everyone needs to work together, do their part. But I think the clear cry from staff and the community is being clear about what your part and your role is. Because part of the blaming happens because of a lack of knowledge.
Right.
And that's why, you know, I love the fact that board members go with me to do classroom visits. You know, I watch mathematics, science, and English language arts today in classrooms, so I have a sense of what our teachers are working with. And I appreciate your concern about the support. And as you know, our teachers are being hit with this big national reform movement called Common Core, and now Smarter Balanced. And so how do we budget our time and our energy exactly to that? So I appreciate your comment, and I think we'll do all we can to include everyone from TK to 5th grade, along with our middle school and our high school folks. I'd like to suggest we start dialoguing with some of the college board folks and so on. We need that picture to be clear too, because we make stuff up and we don't know about that and why kids do or don't get accepted to colleges. So I think that's a dialogue that would be worth having as well.
Well, and it seems like monthly meetings, I mean, if it's a focus group and if the purpose is to make a recommendation potentially, I'm not sure what the purpose is to, I mean, that would be actually helpful to know what that team's purpose is. But if it was a K through 12 and a recommendation was something that could be that group would own, that would be very interesting to hear, and it would certainly be great to have reports from that about the progress. Because it's, you know, eventually we're going to have to make a decision. And if it's a monthly meetings, I'm just worried about how far out that goes, and when we could get information from that group. But I'd certainly like to see that happen.
So Mike, I have two comments. The first comment is that it seems to be that we have rare instance that everybody is in agreement. We want to offer options, smart offer options, because we want to give diagnostics with the right kids in the right option. And we want more options. We all agree with that. And we also want to calculate on junior year possibility. We all agree on that. So we haven't done any disagreement. And then they mentioned again and again the district, especially him, is ready to carry out the community's wishes. In this case, that the board reflects what community wants, and the board makes decision, the community, the district will carry out. And I'm glad to hear that the teachers are working together. So I think at this point of time, I don't know if we already concluded that we reached agreement. If we reach agreement, it was very helpful to the teachers to give their a clear directions on what to work on. Suppose we decided that we should, suppose the decision is that we offer 2 options 6th grade, 3 options 7th grade, 4 options in 8th grade, whatever. And we give the clear direction to the teacher, then they can start early to prepare, to figure out how to best implement the options, how to best to come up with the diagnostic tests that we need to place the kids into those options. And I have the full faith in our teachers' ability to come up with that. I know those are challenging questions, challenging tasks, but I have full faith that they can do it. Because I think they are among the highest paid teachers in the state. So by nature, they should be capable to do it. And so I just want to have the board to think about whether or not we are ready to give the clear instructions to the district. The second thing about timing, and 6th grade, the 5th grade only have 5 months of instructions. They are going to 6th grade. And they need to have, the parents need to have a clear picture on what options are there in 6th grade. And so this decision, we probably don't have too much time to wait. Okay, we want to have thoughtful communication, thoughtful considerations of all factors. but I just don't want to wait until April, May to make a decision. That would be too late. So that's my comment.
I got a lot of comments. And you've heard a lot of my comments from previous meetings, so you can kind of know where my leanings lie. And I threw together a couple of notes here that are absolutely disorganized, so I apologize if they don't kind of fit together. One of the nice things about going to these CSBA workshops is not that you learn something absolutely new from the presentation, but sometimes they trigger thoughts that are above and beyond what the presentation talks about. Folks at Cupertino had a nice presentation on communicating about Common Core. And I think they have their own information officer that are large enough to be able to afford that. And I think they've done, at least from what I've seen, a marvelous job at communicating Common Core and all the issues around it to the community. They've used many, many different paths to do that. And I think we ought to take a look at that, because I think someone mentioned here earlier about how important it is to get the parents involved in this and informed. And so, rather than kind of let it happen, I think we need to be a little bit more proactive. We can learn a lot from Cupertino and just steal some of the paths and methods that they've used. Summer. I did a session on summer school for remedial purposes, but what it triggered in my mind was that summer is a lost opportunity for us. And what I'd love to see is a first implementation of the Cinderella program, the modified flip model that we talked about for the last few months. I'd like to see that implemented this summer for fifth graders as a initial low risk pilot to get that idea started, to get some methods in place, to get it working. And it also gives us an opportunity for those kids who are volunteered to do that will have a much better idea of where they stand when they start sixth grade. We'll have a better idea of what the spread, what the range, what the capabilities are like this. I think that gives us an opportunity to get a better start at this. The keynote speaker, I also listened to him speaking after that, and a lot of those ideas were kind of a little bit out there. Young Gal. Yeah, he was kind of proposing that there be no curriculum, that students just decide what they want to learn and then work on projects. But I think that was a little bit. But one of the key points from his talk was that the U.S. may not perform as well in testing as Asian countries, but they outperform Asian countries in motivation and interest in mathematics. So we've got to get the right balance. From the discussion with Jim Milgram last month, these standards were designed to prepare students for college. College readiness was kind of the foundation for this. But his point was, different people have different ideas about what college readiness means. And it's clear that what we think is college readiness was not the same picture that the people who are writing the high school standards, at least, were seeing it. His opinion was that K through 8 standards were fairly good. The high school standards were where they fell. So I think it's important that we understand what standards to use where and when. Let's see. K-5, I think as Cynthia mentioned, and E-Page mentioned, we're focusing on middle school because that's where we have the biggest decisions. But I think, and until we get 13 years of implementation under our belts, we're going to have a pretty bumpy road because fifth graders are not going to have Common Core behind them when they enter sixth, and so on and so on.
we also have to worry about K-5. And the one thing that concerns me there is, and I have to be careful how I say this, but we have to be very careful to make sure our teachers are prepared for doing the kind of instruction that Common Core is going to require in K through 5. You know that most elementary school teachers are not math majors. And I know that when my daughter went through, some of them struggled with being able to present math in the way that their students needed it, particularly those who were math oriented. So I think we have to be very careful. We have to make sure that we provide them the support and maybe the additional training or workshops or development, or whatever it takes to be able to effectively present math in maybe even the way that mathematicians would see it. Again, summer, it's an opportunity for acceleration perhaps, but also for maintaining. And I think someone mentioned about many parents are sending their kids off to extra classes in the summer in order to get acceleration. I think we miss an opportunity if we don't drive that. Obviously, it's a resource issue, but I think summer is an opportunity for us as well to either bring students who are not up to the average of the department or of the district, or to provide some additional support to keep students from falling behind, or to introduce them into, to deeper study of the things that they have found, more problem-oriented, the kinds of things that Common Core is supposed to be promoting. I think we ought to think strongly about what we can do there. As far as math pathways are concerned, I think at the outset we need to consider at least at a minimum 3 paths. And they should be essentially what we have now, which is, but I think the middle pathway ought to be, as I mentioned before, algebra is an 8th grade class. And the accelerated path should be geometry in 8th grade. And the path for those students who need extra support or may not be preparing for a career that requires a lot of math, that may be the third path. And that'd be more like what the Common Core directs, 6, 7, 8 Common Core standards. But I think the important thing is that this is only a temporary arrangement, because as I've mentioned many times before, we don't have kids who neatly divide into 3 groups of acceleration, and in fact from one grade to the next or 1 month to the next, they need to switch. And so we can't say student is on the algebra path starting at 6th grade and can't change after that. And ideally, I'd like to see this fully differentiated program. And I'd like to see that attempted, piloted next year. But I realize that we can't just switch to that there are a lot of unknowns there. So I think in the meantime, temporarily, we need to have at least 3 pathways, and we need to provide opportunity for switching between them. I think that's important. Also important is the fact, if you look at the Mars test results, it's obvious that our district is skewed this way and the rest of the world is skewed this way. But if you look at the tails of those distributions, we have kids at both ends, and we have to take care of those kids as well. We have to satisfy their needs. I like the idea, Victor, of infinite choice, not just a few choices. Okay. I think one of our challenges is going to be staff support, buy-in, agreement. It's not something that we can just say, okay, this is now our policy, because it has to be implemented in the classroom. That's something that I think we need to be very, very careful about. Another thing I learned at CSBA, I attended a presentation by Linda Darling-Hammond, and she, you know, we've heard a lot of this stuff before, but she said one thing which I really thought was key. And she said that the original Common Core idea was the standards were not intended to be grade level quantized, and I'm paraphrasing. They weren't intended to be 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 3rd grade, 11th grade, whatever. They were intended to be a continuum. And that along the way, there were enough reactionary objections to that they had to put them into specific grades. And I think that's important too, that we need to look at it more as a continuum or smaller quanta. Another comment, acceleration is the wrong word. We're not accelerating any student. Every student should be working at the correct pace. And so if a student is accelerated, then they're in the wrong path. They need to be working at maximum speed, not at maximum push. The other thing is that we have to be careful not to accelerate at the wrong time. And I think, therefore, it's very important that we have, ideally, continuous assessment. And that was part of that Cinderella program as well. You assess every day. If we just do an end of 5th grade assessment to see which pathway you go into, I think that's, that's only, it's one point in time, and students are not single points in time. They're people. They learn at different paces, and they achieve levels at different times. And we need to ultimately have continuous assessment that allows us to know where everyone is at any point during their school career. One other point, no skipping material. The idea of skipping a grade or skipping a topic or subject is anathema to me. I think you need to have that foundation all the way through, but you have to be able to do it in a way that it's all the material in a way that you're not being held back and you're not being bored to death and you're not being overwhelmed and misunderstood.
Great comments. I'm going to bring one thing you said back to something the audience said, and that is you said that our system needs to allow for switching back and forth as kids are at different levels.
If we don't have fully differentiated
Exactly,
instruction, then
which maybe we need to be working towards, but that's, yeah, and the Cinderella program may prove to be invaluable in that. But I think the culture needs to support that too. And so somebody mentioned the culture for mathematicians and for people, and I think that's the whole community needs to be in line with the fact that students can fall in or fall out, or they will be working at their own pace. And maybe they won't be working on the same thing even though they're friends, or whatever that may be, but.
And that's okay.
It's okay. It would be wonderful to be able to somehow encourage that culture and
I want to address one of Mike's concern about, we talk about post K through 8, the teachers have to be really trained for common core standards, which is the way the kids can meet those standards. And I just want to get the district feedback on that. Since for this year, we already halfway through, and we implement early Wednesday out. And the purpose is to have a teacher trained on common core, right? That's the rationale for doing that. So one week. And so I would like our district to come back with kind of an interim update on how ready the teachers are. And suppose they, in January or February, the interim report says they are 50% ready. By end of this school year, they say they are 100% ready. That means in coming school year, at each different grade level, the teacher may not put everything into the students because of but at least we will be able to certain levels to the common core standards. I don't want to have a sudden transition, but this gradual implementation to take advantage of the fresh training the teacher have received this year, right into next year. So that no matter what curriculum we are going to adopt, they should put whatever they learned into action.
And I know we talked about maybe having a check-in in January on that.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about timeline for a minute, unless there's other comments or discussion that you guys want to have. Paige made a great point about wanting to hear from teachers K-12, and I know there is a meeting, a community forum, that the high school will be hosting. Is it January 24th? Do we know?
We've
may
heard
not
the
know.
22nd, we haven't had confirmation from high school, but tentatively, we've seen the 22nd as the date in the Saratoga High School Library. As soon as we get confirmation, we'll push information.
Yeah, so we'll let everybody know as soon as the high school, because it will be a forum so that parents and communities can ask questions, and we can find out more about the K through 12 trajectory, but we need to work on our end in the meantime. But timeline on our end, I do agree that I think the sooner a decision is made, the more we can communicate and the more people have time to get ready.
And along with the timeline, a process would be.
I'm sorry, this is our time to meet. Yes?
No, go ahead. You were talking about the timeline.
No, I just wanted to get opinions and discussion on when you guys see this, and I think we've expressed opinions tonight that I think our staff need time to digest, I think, and to think about. And I would love to hear from them as well, but.
My only concern is the backwards mapping of how much time is required based on whatever decision is made, and I'm not the expert to deliver that information, so time seems to be of the essence, but it would be great to have staff input if, depending on which direction, how much time is needed to implement either. I agree, we have Wednesday built in now, and that's great, and maybe we have that time to use, but if additional professional development is required, especially to certain grade levels, it would be good to know how much.
Lynn, do you have any recommendations or thoughts on the timeline?
Fast and slow. We want the answer now, but things that were talked about tonight, are fairly large. There's not a lot of staff here to hear this, so Roberta and I will do our very best to report back. If there's information that the board needs, we're happy to collect that as quickly as possible, to report back at the I wish, January 14th meeting to provide that particular information. I think you've heard a lot of very strong messages from staff about what they've proposed. I think you've heard a lot of very strong messages from the community. So how do we bring this together, build on that common ground, and most importantly, take care of our kids? So Roberta and I are happy to work with staff and report back on any initial backwards mapping ideas to flesh out more details of the conversation with high school staff and K-5 and so on.
Could we also look into what our neighbors are doing and how they're doing it? Maybe dig deeper?
As of last week, they have no details and very few clues. That's a direct quote. I do, Mike, to your point about Cupertino, I met with Jeremy for a few minutes down there. I made an appointment to come and go and see him in Cupertino. So I'd happy to take 2 board members with me if they'd like to go talk with Jeremy and so on. We'll continue to check in with our colleagues on the other districts. But right now, none of them with these accelerated pathways have any clear details or so on. But they're asking a lot of the same questions that came up tonight. They know that that's the work. It's just a matter of how. Personally, I think there's a lot of talent in our district, in the community, and with our teaching staff. That whatever ingenuity is necessary, I think, I see it as being doable. But defining it is the key. I've heard a lot of comments this evening from the community and the board where I can go back with staff and craft what that might look like.
So I want to take advantage of the community engagements right now, because we have all the tension on this subject, and especially some community members feel that our current offerings are not up to the standards the community wants. No matter what we decide on the curriculum, do we go to common core curriculum or stay with traditional curriculum, no matter what curriculum we go with, I would like to, my personal preference that we implement certain changes to our current, to the program to allow the options, increase the choices, increase options, and to better match the pathways to our kids. And at this time, we only have one placement test. We can skip 6 or less, that's it. And I would like to see more options. Even if we decide not to go common core, stay with traditional, I still want to see more options.
Can I backtrack a minute?
Yeah.
I was under the impression that we were going Common Core. I don't think that is a question here. Our kids will be tested on Common Core by law. So I think maybe that's the time to have this discussion, because I believe we were doing Common Core. It's just a matter of